The announcement came through social media first, as these things often do in 2026. Rory McIlroy, sitting across from Gary Neville, Roy Keane, and Jamie Carragher on the Overlap podcast, casually dropped a statement that sent shockwaves rippling through every corner of professional golf. The man who once called LIV Golf players selfish and naive, who positioned himself as the PGA Tour's most unwavering defender, who publicly questioned the character of anyone who took Saudi money, just said he'd welcome them back without punishment. No suspensions, no fines, no consequences whatsoever. Just open the doors and let them walk right back in. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Golf Twitter exploded into chaos. Player group chats lit up with messages of confusion, anger, and disbelief. Tour officials scrambled to figure out what this meant for ongoing negotiations. Fans who had spent years defending their chosen side suddenly found themselves questioning whether the battle lines they'd drawn so firmly were about to be erased entirely. Because when Rory McIlroy changes his mind about something this fundamental, it doesn't just create headlines. It forces everyone in professional golf to reconsider everything they thought they knew about where the sport is headed. The timing of McIlroy's comments couldn't be more explosive. Just 2 weeks earlier, Brooks Koepka shocked the golf world by announcing his departure from LIV Golf. The five-time major champion, who reportedly had a year remaining on his contract worth over $100 million, cited family and wanting to spend more time at home as his reasons for leaving. According to ESPN, Koepka informed the PGA Tour of his plans before making the announcement public and has already applied for reinstatement of his membership. The PGA Tour responded with a carefully worded statement calling Koepka a highly accomplished professional, while emphasizing that they offer the most competitive and lucrative environment for golfers. That political non-answer left everyone wondering what would actually happen if Koepka tried to return. That's where McIlroy's Bombshell comes in. Speaking on the Overlap, which aired in early January 2026, McIlroy didn't hold back. According to Yahoo Sports, he stated that LIV players have already paid their consequence in terms of reputation and the things they've lost by going over there. If it made the overall tour stronger to have Bryson DeChambeau back and whoever else, he would be okay with it. But he acknowledged that not everyone is in his position, so it would be up to the collective group of PGA Tour members to make that decision. This represents a stunning reversal from the player who once described Phil Mickelson as naive, selfish, egotistical, and ignorant for joining LIV. The contrast between McIlroy's words now and his rhetoric from just a few years ago is genuinely jarring. Back when LIV Golf first emerged as a serious threat in 2022, Rory didn't just oppose it, he actively campaigned against it with the fervor of someone defending sacred ground. He spoke at player meetings, gave impassioned press conferences defending the PGA Tour's legacy, and openly questioned whether LIV players should even be welcomed at major championships. He framed the debate in moral terms, suggesting that players who accepted guaranteed contracts were somehow betraying the competitive spirit that made golf great. His position was clear, uncompromising, and seemingly permanent. Front Office Sports reported that McIlroy was one of LIV Golf's most prominent critics, making his current stance all the more remarkable. So, what changed? According to multiple reports, several factors contributed to this dramatic evolution in McIlroy's thinking. First, LIV has demonstrated genuine staying power that nobody predicted. Early critics, including McIlroy himself, predicted it would collapse under its own weight, that fans wouldn't embrace the new format, that sponsors would stay away, that the whole experiment would prove unsustainable once the initial hype wore off. None of that happened. LIV secured broadcast deals, attracted television audiences, and most importantly, continued writing checks that never bounced. When something you predicted would fail spectacularly instead becomes a permanent fixture of the landscape, it forces you to recalibrate your entire worldview about what's possible. Second, the human element became impossible to ignore. These aren't abstract figures on a rival tour wearing enemy colors. They're friends, practice partners, Ryder Cup teammates, and guys McIlroy has competed alongside for years. Maintaining righteous indignation becomes exponentially harder when it means writing off people you genuinely respect and care about. The personal relationships that define professional golf's relatively small elite community didn't dissolve just because employment contracts changed. McIlroy seems to have recognized that treating former colleagues as permanent outcasts isn't sustainable psychologically, professionally, or for the health of the sport itself. Third, and perhaps most significantly, Brooks Koepka's departure has changed the entire calculus of the LIV debate. Sky Sports reported that Koepka leaving was a blow for LIV Golf, especially as the circuit fights to secure world ranking points for its players. McIlroy himself acknowledged on the overlap that having the best players together only 4 or 5 times a year at majors and the Ryder Cup isn't enough. For golf to remain relevant, they need to compete more frequently. That's a practical observation, not an ideological statement. It's recognition that the current situation serves nobody's interests, least of all the fans who fund the entire enterprise. McIlroy's openness about his own evolution is equally striking. According to Yahoo Sports, he admitted in early 2024 that he was too judgmental of players who joined LIV. He recognized that not everyone is in the same position as him or Tiger Woods, and when you get offered double the money to do the same job, it's sort of hard to turn down. This represents genuine introspection from someone who built his public identity around unwavering loyalty to the PGA Tour. It takes courage to admit you were wrong, especially when millions of people heard you say otherwise for years. The Brooks Koepka situation has become the test case for everything McIlroy is now advocating. According to CBS Sports, Koepka applied for PGA Tour reinstatement less than a month after departing LIV Golf. The procedure for reinstatement remains unclear, as many within the PGA Tour membership expect some form of disciplinary action or restitution before golfers like Koepka can compete in tournaments again. The PGA Tour currently has a 1-year suspension in place for golfers who participate in unauthorized events, and LIV tournaments definitely fit that category. But will they actually enforce it? And if they do, will it be a blanket policy or case-by-case decisions that create more controversy than clarity? McIlroy's position is that no punishment is necessary because these players have already suffered consequences that matter more than suspensions. Their reputations took hits. They lost access to certain events and competitions. They missed out on the camaraderie and weekly competition that defines life on the PGA Tour. According to Outkick, McIlroy emphasized that if bringing back players like Bryson DeChambeau and others makes the overall tour stronger, he would be okay with it. That's a pragmatic assessment focused on what's best for professional golf as a business and entertainment product, not what feels most satisfying from a loyalty or revenge perspective. Billy Horschel, another prominent PGA Tour player, echoed similar sentiments earlier in the week. He was once in favor of punishment for any LIV players wanting to return, but now sees it as a betterment of the product. This suggests that McIlroy isn't alone in his evolving perspective. Other influential players are reaching similar conclusions, which could accelerate momentum towards some form of reconciliation or pathway back for LIV defectors. The Bryson DeChambeau situation adds another fascinating layer to this story. According to Golf Magic, DeChambeau has confirmed he will play LIV Golf in 2026, but stopped short of saying whether he has signed a contract extension. His current deal, reportedly worth $120 million, expires after the 2026 season. In recent weeks, DeChambeau has been openly critical, suggesting the league has got to improve before he commits long-term. He even told Flushing at Golf that he could just do YouTube golf and be totally fine, referencing his massive social media following of over 2.5 million subscribers. DeChambeau's contract situation, combined with Koepka's departure, creates genuine uncertainty about LIV Golf's future that didn't exist before. If their two biggest stars over the past year are either gone or publicly non-committal about staying, what does that say about the league's long-term viability? McIlroy didn't miss the opportunity to twist the knife on that question. According to Golf Monthly, speaking on the Stick to Football podcast, McIlroy questioned how long LIV can realistically continue after spending billions with little return on investment. He pointed out that if LIV is failing to capture the imagination after they've spent so much money on this venture and it's not making a return, he doesn't know how much longer they can keep it going. Today's Golfer reported that McIlroy's tone has shifted dramatically from previous remarks that carried notes of uncertainty and fear about LIV's impact. Now he sounds more relaxed and openly skeptical about whether LIV has a long-term future at all. Where he once spoke like someone fighting for territory, he now sounds like someone stepping back and assessing the situation for what it is. A hugely expensive experiment that has fractured the game and elevated a handful of events but failed to connect with a wider audience in the way its backers hoped. The financial reality of LIV Golf's situation is stark. Golf Monthly noted that the Money in Sport newsletter predicted PIF's investment in LIV would reach $5 billion by the end of 2025. It was revealed in October that the league's UK entity suffered total losses of more than $1.1 billion between its launch in 2021 and the end of 2024, including more than $450 million in 2024 alone. CEO Scott O'Neill revealed the league brought in $500 million worth of sponsorship over 10 months, but it remains unknown if or when the circuit will turn a profit. Those are staggering numbers that can't continue indefinitely, even with Saudi Arabia's seemingly endless financial backing. McIlroy's Masters victory in April 2025 adds crucial context to his current position. Sky Sports detailed how he completed the career Grand Slam at Augusta National, beating Justin Rose in a playoff to end an 11-year wait for his 5th major title. That victory, combined with winning the Ryder Cup and securing his 7th Race to Dubai title, gave him what he described as the best year of his golfing career. When you're coming from that position of success and accomplishment, it's easier to extend an olive branch than when you're defensive and worried about threats to your livelihood. His Masters win also reinforces his credibility when discussing what's best for golf. He's not speaking from weakness or desperation. He's speaking from a position of strength as someone who has achieved everything the sport offers and now has the standing to advocate for changes that might benefit everyone, even if they're politically uncomfortable or challenge positions he held previously. McIlroy's involvement with TGL, the indoor team golf league he co-founded with Tiger Woods, creates another interesting angle. According to Marca, McIlroy was asked about potentially bringing Brooks Koepka into TGL. He responded that Koepka is a pretty outstanding player, and if there's room on a team for him to come and play, it only strengthens what they're trying to do. He's won 5 majors and been one of the best players of our generation. If he decides it's something he wants to do, I'm sure we'll find a way to include him. That's not just diplomatic politeness, that's active recruitment of someone who spent the last 3 years on the rival tour. The question of world ranking points continues to complicate everything. LIV Golf made significant changes for 2026, including switching from their controversial 54-hole format to the traditional 72 holes, primarily to improve their chances of receiving official World Golf Rankings points. According to Yahoo Sports, this was LIV's biggest decision for 2026, but there's still no clarity on whether it will be enough. Without world ranking points, LIV players face increasingly difficult paths to qualify for majors beyond their existing exemptions, which makes returning to the PGA Tour or DP World Tour more attractive regardless of guaranteed money. Today's golfer reported that McIlroy didn't mince words about LIV's format changes, essentially calling them out for abandoning what made them supposedly different. He pointed out that they've now switched from 54 holes to 72 holes to get world ranking points, so they're just doing what everyone else is doing. What's different apart from the money? It's a fair question that cuts to the heart of whether LIV ever represented a genuine innovation in professional golf or was simply a very expensive attempt to buy market share through guaranteed contracts. The broader business negotiations between the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund remain stalled despite the framework. Agreement announced in June 2023. Sky Sports reported that McIlroy revealed earlier this year it was close, but they never got there. That failure to reach a comprehensive deal leaves the sport in an awkward limbo where individual players like Koepka can attempt to navigate back to the PGA Tour. But there's no clear policy framework governing how that happens or what precedent it sets for others. Golf Magic noted that McIlroy believes there will come a time when the riches of PF money start to dry up, especially if the investment continues failing to generate returns. He suggested that Saudi Arabia wants a seat at the table, and the question is, how do you give them that seat while trying to mend the fracture in golf? It's hard because you're trying to give everyone a win, but for everyone to win, everyone is going to feel like they've lost something. That's diplomatic realism, not ideological purity, and it signals that McIlroy has moved well past treating this as a simple battle of good versus evil. The reaction from fans has been predictably mixed. According to Sportskeeda, social media exploded with reactions ranging from praise for McIlroy being the bigger man to accusations that he wants LIV money himself. One fan wrote that Rory is friends with Brooks, wants a path for him back on tour, and knows if Rahm and Bryson return, it's over for LIV. Another commented that it's nice to see Rory being the bigger man for once, though he is in a uniquely privileged spot where he's not in danger of losing his card if LIV players are allowed back. That's an important point about perspective. Not every PGA Tour player has McIlroy's security or earning power, and some legitimately worry that welcoming back LIV players without consequence could threaten their own livelihoods. The path forward remains murky despite McIlroy's clear position. Even if he personally would welcome LIV players back without penalty, he acknowledged that it's not just his decision to make. It would be up to the collective group of PGA Tour members, and achieving consensus among players with vastly different interests and perspectives won't be easy. Some will agree with McIlroy's pragmatic approach. Others will view it as betraying those who remained loyal. The PGA Tour's new CEO, Brian Rowlap, will face one of his first major tests in navigating this situation and determining what policy, if any, should govern returning players. The major championships remain the only guaranteed common ground where LIV and PGA Tour players compete directly. Koepka still has a 5-year exemption from winning the 2023 PGA Championship, which means he can play in majors through 2028 regardless of his tour status. According to ESPN, that exemption gives him flexibility to potentially sit out 2026 while serving whatever suspension the PGA Tour might impose, then return to full competition in 2027 without missing the events that matter most. That option, if available, would essentially make any punishment symbolic rather than substantive. What makes this moment genuinely significant isn't just one player's changed opinion, it's that Rory McIlroy, as perhaps the most influential active professional golfer not named Tiger Woods, has publicly declared that the golf civil war needs to end and that punishment serves no useful purpose. That view, coming from someone who positioned himself as the PGA Tour's staunchest defender, gives cover to others who might share that opinion but feared expressing it. It shifts the Overton window of acceptable positions within professional golf from whether LIV players should be allowed back to how quickly and under what terms that should happen. The coming months will reveal whether McIlroy's shift represents genuine momentum toward reconciliation or just one voice in an ongoing debate that continues for years. Negotiations between the tours continue with varying degrees of optimism and frustration. Player opinions remain divided, with some strongly supportive of welcoming everyone back and others adamantly opposed to anything resembling amnesty for those who left. The financial stakes remain enormous, with billions of dollars and the fundamental structure of professional golf hanging in the balance. Broadcasting deals, sponsorship agreements, world rankings, major championship qualification, and Ryder Cup eligibility all depend on how these questions get resolved or don't. What's undeniable is that this moment marks a turning point in how golf's civil war is publicly discussed. The most prominent defender of the PGA Tour's traditional model has essentially conceded that coexistence, if not full integration, represents the sport's most realistic path forward. Whether that leads to actual structural changes or simply makes the current separation more tolerable remains uncertain. But the conversation has unmistakably moved from whether LIV players should be welcomed back to how and when that might happen. And that shift, more than any specific policy announcement or executive decision, suggests that professional golf's fractured state may finally be approaching some form of resolution. Rory McIlroy didn't set out to become the central figure in golf's most consequential debate in generations. He simply refused to stay silent when others chose carefully managed neutrality. That choice made him a hero to some and a target to others, but it also ensured that his words carry weight few other players can match. When someone with that much influence publicly reconsiders their position, everyone else in the sport has to at least consider whether they should do the same. And that's exactly what's happening right now, in executive offices, player lounges, and negotiating rooms where the future of professional golf is being actively constructed. The sport that emerges from this period of upheaval may look quite different from what came before. Traditional tour structures might evolve into something more flexible and player-friendly. Guaranteed contracts might become standard rather than controversial. The distinction between different tours might matter less than access to specific marquee events where all the best players compete. Or the current division might simply continue with minor adjustments around the edges while everyone learns to live with fractured competition. But at least now, thanks largely to McIlroy's willingness to evolve and speak honestly about that evolution, it seems increasingly possible that professional golf's future includes pathways for players to move between tours based on what makes sense for their careers and families, rather than being permanently locked into choices made years ago. For fans who've been caught in the middle of this battle, forced to choose sides in a conflict that often felt more about egos and money than actual principles, that possibility alone represents genuine progress worth celebrating.